Old School Pokemon here. Today's video, I'm going to be showing you a recent CGC return, as well as giving you guys my thoughts on CGC grading as of now. Before we hop into this video, though, I do want to quickly mention, if any of you guys haven't already, be sure to go ahead and subscribe to the PokeFlips YouTube channel. This is a combined channel with Dan and I, Catch 'em All Collectibles. This is the channel where we're going to be uploading our bi-weekly podcasts moving forward. So every other Thursday, you'll see a new podcast over on that channel. We also have some other plans for that channel as well. But if you guys don't want to miss out on the future podcast episodes, be sure to go subscribe to that channel. I'll be sure to leave a link for that YouTube channel in the description of this video. But anyway, let's go ahead and hop right into this video right here, talking about my CGC return, as well as giving you guys my kind of updated thoughts on CGC. So as I go through these cards, just going to kind of talk things over with you guys. So this return right here, I thought it was going to be a little bit different than it actually was. I was a little bit disappointed with the cards that were within this return when I actually got it back. I submitted all of these cards through Ledkins, so I really wasn't sure what kind of cards were coming back to me when I got the email that I had a CGC return being shipped back to me. I had thought that it was going to be something a little bit better than this right here, but as it turned out, it was just these cards right here. These cards actually came from a huge submission that I did back in April. I submitted about 1,700 cards into CGC, and I received the majority of these cards back a couple months ago. I actually did one video going over all of the first edition base set and shadowless base set CGC cards that I had got returned, and I was planning on doing other videos showing the other cards that had come back within that submission, but I actually never ended up doing those videos. So this return was actually the last portion of that big submission right there. As of now, I believe I have one more submission out at CGC through Ledkins, and I think that one is going to be a little bit better of a return. At least hopefully it will be. But yeah, that's the one. I was thinking that this one was going to be that one, but as it turns out, it was not. So a little disappointing there. But anyway, so to kind of go over my updated thoughts on CGC, when I first started grading with CGC back in, I want to say I got my first return back in January of last year, maybe December or January of last year is when I got my first return. I actually did a YouTube video talking about my thoughts on CGC when I had gotten that first return. And at the time, I was very optimistic for CGC. I thought that they were going to be a really viable option going forward. I really liked everything about CGC at the time, and since then my thoughts have drastically changed for the worse on CGC. So first off, as most of you probably have heard by now, it seems to me at least that CGC has definitely become a little bit more lenient on their grading. So we're starting to see a lot more perfect 10s, a lot more pristine 10s. And when I say a lot more, it's not something like PSA handing out 10s at the rate that they hand out 10s. But I believe we definitely are starting to see an increase in the number of CGC 10s that are coming out and being graded and all that. So I do believe what everyone else is saying, that CGC has kind of gotten a little bit easier with their grading standards. And so when I got the email about this return being mailed back to me, like I said, I thought it was going to be a better return originally. But so I thought it was going to be a better return, and I was excited to see the grades for this return, because it was really the first return that I've gotten from CGC in a couple months. So I was curious to see what the grades were going to look like, if it was going to look any better than my past CGC returns, where it was mostly all 8.5's with a couple 9s mixed in as well. So I was looking forward to seeing what the grades were going to be like with this CGC return right here. And as you guys can see so far, I do not notice any type of difference with their grading skills. So as per usual, it is majority 8.5's across the board, with a few 9s mixed in as well. There's a few 9.5's at the end here, but it's really disappointing to see all of these 8.5's with a couple 9s mixed in as well. So that's the first thing I wanted to talk about. I will add a note here saying that I definitely think there's a difference between vintage and modern, as well as English and Japanese, which is fairly obvious to most people. But I recently middlemanned a CGC return for Celebi Collectibles, who submitted a whole bunch of modern Japanese cards, which modern Japanese, the quality of those cards is a lot better than these types of cards right here. Wizards of the Coast English cards, even modern English cards, the quality of Japanese cards is definitely superior. But anyway, his return actually had a decent amount of CGC 10s, both pristine 10s and perfect 10s, decent amount of 9.5's, and then the remainder, or for the most part, the remainder being CGC 9s. So his return was actually really fun to go through. Had a lot of really good cards, a lot of really good grades in there. So to me, that return looked like what everyone had been saying was true, that CGC had lightened up a little bit on their grading standards and were giving out a few more perfect 10s and pristine 10s, which in my opinion, I think that is necessary. I don't think many people like CGC right now, just based off of these types of returns right here, where it's majority just 8.5's across the board. This is no fun for anyone right here. But anyway, so I did want to mention that. Going forward, I do think CGC is going to have merit in some cases. Personally, I'm not going to be submitting much more into CGC myself, but I do think they do still have merit in some cases. First off, I do really like their cases. I think those are good. I like the labels. I like this aesthetically. I really like CGC. So as a collector, I do like CGC, but as a seller, CGC is terrible, absolutely terrible. But I do think CGC still has merit for modern stuff as well as Japanese cards in like mint condition. The ones that you could go for that 10 or a 9.5 or at least a higher percentage of 9s versus all these 8.5's right here. But anyway, enough on that. The other thing that I want to complain about with CGC is the whole advertising they did when they came out with their any card that receives a perfect 10, meaning all 10s for the subgrades, any card that receives a perfect 10 gets free subgrades on that card. They made that to be such a big deal, and I really don't understand why they made that a big deal. Obviously, when you have a perfect 10 over here is the overall grade, you know that all the subgrades are going to be 10s, so 10, 10, 10, 10. Whereas with a pristine 10, I might have that wrong. I might have that switched. I don't think so. I think a perfect 10 is all 10s, and then a pristine 10 is 195. So we'll go with that. And then if I mix that up, I'm sorry. But anyway, perfect 10, all subgrades being 10s, they get free subgrades. They made that to be such a big deal when everyone knows that a perfect 10 is going to have all 10s for the subgrades. Whereas with the pristine 10, you're going to have 195 subgrade and 310 subgrades. So I thought that it would be a better kind of perk to do free subgrades on all 10s, including the pristine 10s, where people are more curious as to what that 195 grade. Nobody really cares about seeing all 10s on the subgrades, at least in my opinion. So that was another thing that I really didn't understand about CGC recently. They made that to be such a big deal, like they were doing something really cool for the community and all of that stuff, when I really could care less about seeing subgrades on a perfect 10 when you know they're all going to be 10s anyway. But anyway, so there's that. Final notes that I wanted to touch on with CGC as we go through these last few cards. We're finally out of the WotC era. Final portion of this submission was just some modern promos that I had lying around, and these ones did a little bit better than the WotC stuff. We got a few more 9s at least, but So, last few things I want to touch on with CGC. So, right now, their turnaround times are getting a lot better. Their turnaround times for bulk, as I'm recording this video, are being advertised as 50 business days. So, that is drastically better from when it was when everyone was kind of in the thick of the grading. I believe their bulk turnaround times went up to 225 business days at some point. So for them to be all the way back down to 50 business days, it's actually really, really good. So I will give that to CGC right there. That's a good accomplishment on CGC's behalf. But I'm curious as to why their turnaround times are so much faster now compared to back then. I think it's a combination of them actually expanding their trading card division of the business, but I also think a good portion of their turnaround times being drastically lower now is because people just aren't submitting into CGC. People are so sick of just the 8.5's and 9's across the board that I think a lot of people have stopped submitting into CGC, and I think the demand for CGC is definitely dwindling down. So I think it's a combination of them hiring a lot of people to kind of work through their backlog and get caught up with everything. But I also think that it's because people just aren't submitting into CGC, like I said. So wanted to mention that. And then finally, we'll touch on the pricing. Now, all of these cards that I graded with CGC, this was back under their old pricing. Right before they increased their pricing is when I submitted all of these cards. So I believe I paid $7.20 per card, which even with all of the 8.5's within this submission, I'll still make a decent bit of money off of these cards once they sell, just because of my price point being so low. So the new pricing for bulk tiers, which is what I submitted these cards under. Another thing I can't stand about CGC is the boxes they use to mail the cards back in. They put them in these boxes, and then they use like cardboard dividers. So like each card, their cards aren't like stacked up like that. There's a little bit of space between each card. But those cardboard dividers leave all of this like cardboard dust and pieces of cardboard, and it just looks terrible. So you got to wipe everything off, and really not a big fan of that. But anyway, getting back into the pricing that I was talking about. Current pricing for the bulk tier, which is the tier that I mailed all of these cards off on under, is $15 per card. So they doubled the cost of grading compared to back then. Plus, they increased the cost of subgrades. So I forget how much subgrades were back then. I believe it was $3 or $4 for subgrades back then. So $7.20 for grading, and then $3 or $4 for subgrades. Nowadays, it's $15 for grading, and then another $10 for subgrades. So if you want to grade something under the bulk tier with subgrades, it's $25 per card, which is absolutely ridiculous, in my opinion. I will never understand why CGC charges so much for subgrades. I think that's something that kind of separates PSA and CGC, is the subgrades. I think if CGC wants to succeed, first off, they need to do something about their grading scale, for sure, in my opinion. Secondly, they need to reduce their pricing. The bulk tier should not be $15 per card, and I do think they will lower their pricing at some point in the near future, especially now that they're getting caught up. So I do think we'll see that. But another thing is they really need to lower the cost of the subgrades. Having subgrades be 2/3 of the cost of grading, $15 for grading and then $10 for subgrades, is absolutely ridiculous. So I think they need to lower the cost of subgrades, lower the cost of grading. And like I said, the subgrades is what separates CGC from PSA. I personally do like the subgrades. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about subgrades, but I do like the subgrades on cards. So I think if CGC can lower their pricing, lower the cost of subgrades, and then lower their grading standards a little bit to make it a little bit easier to get 9s versus all these 8.5's, I think they'll be in good shape. But for right now, like I said, really not impressed with CGC. And for the time being, probably not going to send any more cards off to CGC. But anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed my little rant there, just to show you what we have here. I don't know how many cards total, but so this pile is all CGC 8's. These 3 piles right here are CGC 8.5. 8.5's. These two piles right here are CGC 9's, and then this 3 card pile right here are CGC 9.5. So as you can see, we got 3 9.5's, some 9's, whole bunch of 8.5's, and then a couple 8's as well. So overall, pretty terrible submission. But anyway, that is all I have for today's video. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are on CGC. I know back in the beginning, I was very optimistic about them. Nowadays, not so much, but we'll see what happens to them in the future going forward. But anyway, that's all I have. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I will see you in the next one.